Hey everyone, Nick here from Whole Latte Love. I've got Zach with me.
Hello everyone.
Good to be back, Zach. We haven't done a stream in a minute.
Yeah, it has been a little while, hasn't it?
So we've got some fun stuff. If you're tuning in from our previous stream, welcome back. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. So we're covering something pretty fun today, and we've got some new entries in this category too. These are SCA Certified Coffee Makers. So you might know Whole Latte Love, obviously, for our espresso machines, but we carry several SCA Certified Coffee Makers that can make a golden cup of coffee. So Zach, what do we got here today with us?
All right, so we have a couple different options from Bonavita. We also have Breville, Fellow, and we'll actually name some other shout-outs of a few other brewers that also are qualified as that SCA brewer as well. So, Nick, what does SCA mean?
Yeah, so the SCA, if you aren't aware, is the Specialty Coffee Association. So they set the standards basically for specialty coffee across the world, right? And so a certified brewer means that it has adhered to the SCA specifications for things like brew temperatures, for the extraction in the actual coffee, for the consistency of multiple pots brewed, for the capacity of the brew basket not to overfill or overflow when you're using a ratio for specialty coffee. So basically, in a nutshell, these are going to be coffee makers that can produce a high quality cup of coffee similar to a hand brewed cup, basically on demand. So
yeah, and very similar to that hand brew cup, we're also looking at that ratio of like a 1:15 all the way up to a 1:18 ratio when looking at grams. And you'll see on a lot of these different kinds of brewers, when you're looking at how many cups or liters or whatever it might have for you, typically in those ratios we're looking at grams, and you'll see that some of them even use grams within its language. But you can also program on that within, some higher tier, fancier options like the Fellow behind me.
The Fellow Aiden really kind of takes things into that whole kind of pour over mindset with programmable schedules basically and pulses for, imitating your pour, right, with different temperatures and flows and amounts like that. But we'll kind of get into that in just a minute. We'll start things off a little simpler with a product that I'm really happy to bring back to all of you at home. That's the Bonavita Coffee Maker. So if we want to get over there, perfect. This is from their new, it's called their Enthusiast line. So this is their Bonavita 8-cup Enthusiast Coffee Maker. We have both the glass carafe version here as well as the thermal stainless. So if you aren't familiar, basically a glass carafe coffee maker is going to have a hot plate that will keep the coffee hot after you've brewed it, whereas a thermal carafe is just using insulation, right? So on our Bonavita, if we can get real close, you may or may not be able to see it actually on our water reservoir here. As Zach was saying, there are actually recommendations for our ground coffee in grams next to the number of cups that we want to use. And so in this particular case, we've got this one filled for 6 cups. We're going to be brewing with our Ethiopia single origin, and we're going to do a 48-gram recipe here. So we've got our Shadow Life X that we'll be using for grinding all of our coffee today, and we also have that as part of our Black Friday sale. So if you're tuning in now, make sure to check that out. James, I am glad to see you back, sir. It's been a while since we've been doing our live streams, but I see you in the chat. Good morning to you too. Glad you could join us. And so, Zach, what do we got here? This is our Varia Accu Scale.
Our Accu Scale, and we're just using the container that comes with the Life X today. But just to make things a little bit harder on ourselves, or to see what these brewers can really do, we are using a nice lighter roast Ethiopian leaner. So the key thing about this coffee and what I'm really looking for is what texture that these coffee makers can really produce. And then also, can it get into those florals or those different kinds of acids that are really going to be, more nuanced to what people would think are developed from pour overs or slower brew or single batch methods. Like, are we able to do that in a large amount?
Exactly. And so we are going to do a few things. So you'll notice, obviously, gave a little RDT to these. These are very fresh beans, a little lightly roasted. That's going to help eliminate static. And I'm actually going to do what's called a hot start. So I do have a second container here, because what I'm going to do is remove the single dose bellows on the top here, and basically just we'll hot start by starting the motor in manual mode, and I'm just going to add my beans.
Now, all of these steps that Nick just went through are especially important due to the fact that it's winter. There's less humidity in the air, so things like the Ross droplet technique with a little spritz of water really helps decrease that amount of static that you really produce in grinding, which really kind of happens with every grinder at this time of year, which is an unfortunate fact.
So the Bonavita is really nice because there's just not a lot to do with it other than basically to add your coffee and start brewing. Now, this particular coffee maker does have a few little nuanced features that I'll cover right now. One is just actually going to be with our basket here. So there's a valve on the bottom. This allows you to actually remove the carafe underneath. So this presses up, and that's what allows liquid to flow. And so if you're extra eager to get that coffee in the morning, you can't wait, you can actually remove the carafe, pour a cup, and then put it back into position without having your coffee spill all over the place. So if you're like me and you're very impatient, that's very helpful. And this coffee just smells so nice. I am going to put this in because there's another feature, so we'll power the coffee maker on, we were on actually. Very gentle LED there. We have brew, and that's just going to be how we brew a cup of coffee, but we also have bloom. And so with bloom, we've measured this. You can press the bloom button, and then what will happen is about 120 grams of water is going to be dispensed into the coffee to saturate. And then when that's done, you can just disengage bloom and then press brew and then just brew your coffee. And that's going to allow you to actually allow the bloom to take place for as long as you'd really want. And so that's going to be something that we can see on our Breville Lux as we get to that as well. Just the ability to kind of control bloom there.
And that's important too, because typically when we're looking at bloom, we're wanting to basically triple the amount of our dose in water. So that's our typical go-to when we're looking at how much water do we really want to bloom something, or how much penetration will that water really take for it to really bloom and saturate beforehand.
And we're coming up just a little short with that, with us using a 48-gram dose, but we're actually really close, which is nice.
It is close enough, for sure. Yeah. So that is one limitation towards the Bonavita that I would say, but we're going to see within some newer brewers over behind me that we can actually really use those higher dose batch brews and a higher bloom as well.
So, and I just switched it over to brew, and that's it, right? So I had some friends of mine, I bought them a Bonavita coffee maker as a wedding gift.
Yep.
And it lasted them 13 years, right? 13 years of SCA Certified Gold Cup coffee.
Yeah, and my parents actually have it out in Vermont too, using it daily still.
Yes. The last button on there is a descale button. You obviously want to descale your coffee maker if you are not using water that's been filtered and treated for calcium buildup and lime scale. So just like an espresso machine, you do want to descale these. Now, the Bonavitas don't have any other functions besides this, right? So there's no clocks, there's no other programmable timers or anything like that. It's really just a very straightforward coffee maker that makes good coffee.
And I love the simplicity of that too. Like, we know that it's an SCA certified machine, so it's going to keep up that temperature, and it's just going to be as straightforward as you want. So with our other brewers, you're going to see that there are quick ways to really get into brewing, but this will be the quickest, fastest, easiest way to really dial in things. You can actually then adjust maybe your grind size for different tastes.
Your grind size, your dose if you want. Not seen here, but very much acknowledged and appreciated by us. The Technivore Mocha Master series of coffee makers as well. Definitely want to give them a shout out. We only have so much room on the counter back here, but we do love ourselves some Technivorms too. So if you're wondering, those are also all SCA certified as well. All of the Bonavita coffee makers also SCA certified. And one thing just to note too is that certification does not last forever. So you need to go back, resubmit every 3 years, so you can't really rest on your laurels and make your coffee maker one time and then, that's it. you do need to go back and get them consistently recertified to guarantee that they're still producing that really high quality coffee.
Yeah, so they are looking towards like maybe longevity over time as well. So,
well, I mean, you'd hope that
when they get their recert.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, those standards do change and update as well based on new findings by the Specialty Coffee Association. I believe the current rules were put in place in 2021, but you know, I hear that they may be actually updating a few things, so it'll be interesting to see in the future. But yeah, Zach, I mean, so while this is brewing for us, we can obviously talk about our next coffee maker on this list, which is going to be the Breville Lux Brewer. So the Breville Lux is a new coffee maker from Breville. It replaces their old precision coffee maker. Just like the Bonavita, we do have two varieties. This is the glass carafe on one side, and then we have our thermal carafe version on the other. The Lux is interesting because it's sort of the nice middle ground between our Bonavita, which is going to be a little more simple, and then our Aiden, which is going to be very, very advanced. So, Jay Sparrow, we see you in the comments. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for commenting. Zach, what do you got there? You got your carafe?
I got a carafe. I just like this one. I am definitely the fan of having an insulated carafe, just keeping my coffee a lot warmer for longer. I even do this with my pour-overs, though. Yeah. So I'll actually have a carafe very similar to this. Like after I'm done making my pour-over, I'm a slow sipper. So I kind of need this. And a few of these machines behind us do have a hot plate as well, but I like to keep it just within here.
Yeah. And so these hot plates too, typically they're holding around, I would say 185 or so degrees. Being actively heated, the less coffee you have, obviously, the more likely you are to experience some evaporation or cook that a little bit.
Yeah.
Versus on insulated carafe, you're just going to lower temperature a little bit more over time. So Jay Sparrow, you're saying, can I inquire from you, barista interview questions, please? So if you've got questions or comments, definitely toss them into the chat, and if it's something that we can answer right away, we'll definitely get you an answer. ASOLs, so the answers, some of these coffee makers do have dishwashable parts. We do list that on the website for every coffee maker that we're carrying with dishwasher safe parts. I know several parts from the Breville are, and the Bonavita as well, but it is going to vary based on the coffee maker, so you do want to just take a look at that. So let's go up close though with our Breville Lux, because our first coffee maker, our Bonavita, uses basket-style filters like this, but the Breville is going to be starting a trend that we'll see repeated on the Aiden, which is that you actually have variable filter styles that you can use, and that's going to come down to ultimately the quantity of coffee that you want to make at a time. So in the Breville, we have a variable basket in here. So right now we've got a cone filter fitted in here, or a cone filter adapter. You can remove this and just use basket filters instead. So if you're making a larger batch, you can use a basket with a flat bottom. And then on top of that, included with the Brevilles is something called a gold tone filter. So this is a fine mesh coffee filter that is dishwasher safe and reusable. So you can put this in here, and basically if you run out of your paper filters, or you just don't want to create waste and don't use them, you can use the gold tone instead. Now, on top of that, these gold tone filters, because they don't use paper, you are going to get more of the coffee oils, and you are getting thicker kind of body, more rich kind of flavors. So it really comes down to how you want to brew, and that's, like I said, the Lux has some options, but at the same time, a few more limitations versus the Aiden, let's say. So Zach, what are we preparing here?
So we're actually preparing the same exact thing, because we do want to do a little bit of a taste difference between all of these brewers today. So again, we're going to do that 48 grams like we did on the Bonavita with the Breville, and kind of see where it really varies with this additional control. Does the control really matter?
Yeah.
We don't know. We're about to find out.
That's right. So going over a few other features of the Breville Lux though as well. On the standard just brew cycle, that is going to be your SCA Gold Cup certified cup, but then there's also a custom brew cycle, and we'll get into a little bit more detail on that. But the custom brew allows you to change your initial bloom. So it has a bloom function like our Bonavita, where we are going to be introducing water. So there's a low, medium, and high bloom, which correlates to about 100, 200, or 300 grams of added water. I'll give Zach a minute there just with his grinding. There we go.
Purposely interrupting you.
That's right. And so you can also set your bloom time. That's between 10 and 60 seconds. So that's how long you want the bloom to pause after it's been dispensed before starting to brew. You have temperatures. I believe it's between 194 and, let me give that a little step. Yeah. Very nice.
We need a little whiff first.
194 and I think 204, adjustable in 2-degree increments. And then you also have variable flow rate, low, medium, and high. And so that's really going to just control how quickly the water drips out onto your grounds.
Now, do you think that 2-degree increments are going to change the flavor profile? It's the real question here.
It's possible. It depends on how nuanced your coffee is and really how developed your palate is, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that it will come down to the person using the coffee maker. Like that question could really answer what's the coffee maker for you, the Bonavita, where you don't have as much precision control, the Breville Lux, or even the Aiden. But we'll get started here.
And maybe another question to that is, how do you even choose what temperature that you want to do? I think there are some good go-tos on how we like to choose dark roast, light roast,
filter holding situation,
medium roast. I did hide all of the filters from Nick. You know, little surprises live. So we generally kind of choose these different temperatures dependent on roast profiles. So I think it's just a little bit easier to extract things that are a little bit less dense and more porous, like dark roasts, where you don't need as much temperature to really extract a lot of the solubles that are there. And then on the other hand, you also need higher temperatures to actually get into more specific flavor compounds. Yeah. At different temperatures, you're actually extracting different flavors. So you need higher and higher temperatures to really get a lot of nuances. So maybe you want to try both. Anyways, depending on the roast profile.
If we can, let's get back up tight on our Lux here too. I'll just do a little overview of some of the features like I was saying. So it's going to be a little tricky to see, but we have two options right here. We can select using our encoder knob. We have brew and custom. So if I just press this knob in, that's going to start either the standard brew or the custom. Now, if I press the settings menu, you'll see obviously this is where we can program both this machine's cold brew feature, which I'll talk about in a minute, and our custom feature. Like I said, that's where we have bloom volume, bloom time, brew temperature, and flow rate. So Zach, you set this at 202. This is our Ethiopia. This is going to be a little lighter, a little fresher, right? So we are having a higher temperature to mitigate some acidity. We've got our flow rate set to low. Bloom time is 30 seconds, pretty normal. And then bloom volume is high. That's going to be 300 grams. So we'll click back. This machine does have a little bit more going on. We can actually set a clock that you can use to turn the machine on and have it brew in the morning. So the automatic brew is really nice. You can turn off the beeping if you want. There's a descaling function, and then Breville also includes a water filter that comes with the machine, and you can replace them if you want to use the Breville filters to prevent scale. So going back though, if we want to go into cold brew, the way cold brew works on this machine is essentially you can fill the top carafe here, and so just like our Bonavita, we actually do have a spring-loaded valve here, so you can essentially infuse to make a nice concentrate and then be alerted and then put your carafe in to drain out when you're all done brewing. So that's interesting as well. Now, we're going to go back though and just go to brew, and at this point, or actually, do you want me to do your custom?
No, let's just go do a regular brew on it.
We'll do a regular brew then. And so that's going to be it. So we have a timer that's going to tell us how long the brew will actually take. And then when we're all done, we get a countdown timer that starts at the end that's going to keep that hot plate hot for 2 hours.
So another touch point that I really like about this, and it's a huge difference when looking at the Bonavita to the Breville. One thing is the installation of the full system here.
Actually, so go ahead and grab the other one, and that way we can show it off. Well, this guy right here.
I was about to say, you want me to carry this whole thing over? So this is actually insulated as well. And what we know about flavor is that aroma also matters. So if we're actually entrapping a lot of the aroma compounds that are within the actual brewing process, and then having that carry on to our actual cup, things are supposed to taste better. They're likely to taste better as well.
Yeah, it helps obviously just with some of our consistency as well. You know, the Bonavita is a little more bare bones. It is reflected in the price. I mean, you're looking at around, I want to say, I think like $220, and then the Breville Lux, depending on which version you purchase, that's getting into that more $3 to $350 kind of range, $320 to $350 sort of range. And then obviously the Aiden, a little more expensive, but while this brews on the Breville, Zach, just tell us a bit about the Aiden. First of all, I love, too, that you've got the Ode here as well. So we've got some nice fellow represented here.
Yes, I had to pair the two. So the Ode, again, we're kind of sticking with that flat burr design, much like the Life X over here. We have another flat burr over here. So with that Ode, it actually gives you parameters on the inside of actually being able to use your fellow Aiden over here. Yeah. And there's also more recipes that you can kind of find everywhere that you can even find within the Aiden itself.
Yes.
So you can actually scroll to different guided brews within this machine, and you can find yourself, you know, a normal dark roast. You can find cold brew.
Yeah, they were seeing that a lot.
You can also see their fellow drops, where you can actually see a lot of different roasters integrate their specific recipes for different coffees, which you can see that
that's our Whole Latte Love, our beamed up.
Has our own within here as well. So we have Whole Latte Love beamed up. We have some fun custom ones. And
there's our Guatemala.
And some other interesting variations of maybe the dark roast, because you can go through and edit then recipes that are already loaded.
Yeah. So you're already seeing tons of options. A lot of, I think that one said, one of those was silly, the ZR rules or something.
Yep.
You know, the fellow Aiden is definitely a IoT kind of coffee maker. So you have the companion app as well. You can download. So really, like on our Breville, with our custom options, we can make one custom brew cycle. And obviously you can change that, but at the same time, it is going to be limited in that regard. So it is a little more user-friendly, though. It's not, you're not going to need to be as techy, I think, to understand how the Breville Lux works. The Aiden does have the guided brew, which is really helpful, but if you really want to push it to its extremes, you do need more barista knowledge, I would say, to really get the most out of this. Would you say that's fair?
I would say that's completely fair. And just understanding those ratios and what it can do when it's actually doing temperature drops or variations in the ratios that you're trying to specifically achieve. It actually shows you within a ratio, and as we'll see shortly when we start doing a brew, it'll give you how many grams that you actually want.
Yeah.
So if you want a specific coffee, it'll actually then tell you, it's like, I need 48 grams.
Exactly.
Dependent on what ratio that we're actually programming into the machine itself.
So let's grind up our last bit of coffee. And just to cover a few more things about the Aiden as well, just like the Breville, there are two baskets that come with it. Actually, where is, right here. Two baskets that are color-coded. We have a smaller cone that you can use. So this cone is used for, obviously, cone filters and smaller brews. The Aiden does have kind of a single cup functionality that you can use as well. I know the folks at Fellow love to put, say, one of their Carter tumblers underneath, right, for a smaller amount. And then you do have the basket for a larger quantity of coffee. And then this switch changes which of these holes the water can flow through based on the style of basket. So you have it pointed either towards blue or green, depending on your current brew.
And in this case, we're going to actually do the blue as well, and we're going to actually use these shorter baskets as well.
Now, to keep things consistent for us, though, I am going to grind on our Chiato Life X so that we've ground coffee with the same grinder for all three.
Oh, smart, smart.
And I will say, too, similar to the Ode that we have there, the Life X on the adjustment knob it's actually always going to be a consistent reference. So one turn of that knob gets you the full range of grind. So for example, we're set at 7, and that's what we've been using for all of our brewed coffee, like our drip coffee that we're making right now. And so if we ever needed to change the grind, let's say we want to go down closer to a 2 or a 1 for our espresso, we know that we can just go back to 7 again and go back to our drip coffee. So that's something that I really like to see on stepless grinders, is just a fixed reference. It's something I think we're seeing a lot more of now, but it's taken a while for people to get there. Chiato definitely does a great job with the LifeX. Their new Rev grinder too.
Yep.
Super cool way that it tracks grind positioning.
Yeah, one thing that I loved about the initial tests when we actually got the LifeX2 is that it was just every number almost lined up with the amount of microns that you're also looking for. So even over time since that test, and I've forgotten, it's like, oh, I remember 7 is about 700 microns. It varies a little bit, but I can actually find, just about what I want from that.
And so 48.2. So I know I could pour directly in. There's part of me that just really likes, kind of adding it by hand. I just feel more connected to my brew process here.
So keeping things as simple as possible between all of our brews, we are again going to pick a recipe that is just kind of standard within the brewer. So we're just going to hit light roast. I would consider this Ethiopian a good light roast, and I kind of want to see what it just does kind of stock with the machine. And if we can bring the camera back to the fellow Aiden over here, we're also going to be picking how many cups that we want right on the screen.
Here's your coffee.
Why, thank you. And to keep things, again, similar, we're going to be doing 6 cups.
And you'll see, too, the screen here, right?
Yep.
3 blue dots letting you know, hey,
just make sure.
The basket we need, that's the position that switch needs to be in.
All right, because that does change. If it's low enough, it'll actually tell you, hey, we actually need a green basket, not the blue one.
So it's really, really handy, and it's just giving you the information that you need. Reminds me a little bit of some of the Gaja super automatics, honestly, with the really clear communication from the screen there. So we all set to brew?
We are all set to brew. So it's saying 6 cups. It's actually wanting for this stock recipe, it's saying 52.9 grams. So I'm guessing the ratio that was actually programmed within the machine is just a little bit different from the ratio that we're doing on other things. Doesn't really matter. Few grams. We'll see if it makes a difference.
And Zach, would you say commonly for hand brewed, like a 1:16 ratio is a good place to start?
I think a 1:16 is a great place to start. Sometimes a 1:15. It all really depends on the coffee itself and what you're brewing out of. Like flat bottom versus conical really does matter. The same with these machines as well. Flat bottom versus conical will matter.
And I mean, and that's something that you can play with too, just depending on how you want to affect flavor. And maybe you don't want to change your dose, don't want to change your grind, but go maybe do a 1:17 or 1:18 if you want to stretch them a little bit.
Yeah, it really depends on bed depth, what you're really trying to go for. Are you trying to go for more clarity? One key difference that you'll find within the ratios that you'll actually use is that ratios will change your profile and your flavor, but the one key thing that it does change is also the caffeine amount. So go to a lower ratio if you don't want as much caffeine, or just decrease your initial grind amount. And the key thing about that too is like the lower that you decrease your starting weight of your coffee, your bed also changes. Yeah. So paying attention that you have enough coffee with that in that bed, which is why it kind of changes to more of a conical shape than a flat bottom, because there would be nothing to really brew over of a a couple grams on a flat bottom.
Yeah, it'd be super thin layer there, and then it'd be like, oh man.
Some true clarity right there.
So Zach, we've got some beautiful cups that we're going to be drinking from today too. So and I'll grab another one just so that we can show off a little bit more. This is Fellows Pico series of cups. So they're a beautiful kind of terracotta style cup. You've got a nice pop of color there. Available in 4 sizes. You've got espresso, cappuccino, and then basically small and large latte. This is their new color. It's called Pacific, so it's this really nice deep blue. We've got the matching saucers and the spoons as well, which I really like.
You cannot forget about the spoons. The spoons are my favorite part.
They are very nice spoons. You know, here on the East Coast, maybe next year we can get Atlantic as our next color. So just keep that one in the bank, fellow. I'm watching. But these are really, really nice cups, perfect for latte art with the shape of the bowl basically in the bottom there, but really, really good. We don't necessarily want our coffee to be piping hot when we drink it because we're not going to be able to perceive any flavor. So I won't be preheating these because I do want to let it cool just a little bit for our initial taste test that we're doing.
Well, that's a great fact too. With a fellow too, you can also do those lower brew temperatures as well. Sure, that affects flavor, but also kind of affects your sippability right away too.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, well, sippability, and then too, if you're really trying to imitate a pour over, right? When you take that kettle off your heat source, the water is cooling actively the entire time that you're pouring it. So the water that you start your infusion with is actually going to be different in terms of temperature than what you finish with. And on the Aiden, you can actually program the temperature for each pulse of that brew cycle to change effectively to imitate that change in temperature as well.
Which might give me a little bit more of a shout out towards another brew method, the X-Bloom as well, where a lot of times when I'm actually brewing with that one, I'll start with like a bloom at 191 degrees because I can. And because of things, we don't have to go into the science, but then we go into the actual extraction after that bloom, and I increase it to 200, maybe I'll increase it to 203 on that third, and each time it's actually extracting different taste profiles and different things.
And I think too, one of the things that's really exciting about a product like the X-Bloom, which you can check out in our Best of Super Automatics video that we just launched, is that as we start to see more challenging coffees like co-ferments, for example, that are going to require different brewing recipes, something like the X-Bloom is going to give you a degree of control, or the Aiden, for example, that will allow you to experiment in ways that you really couldn't just if you're pouring on your own, where you can have different temperatures, for example.
Exactly. So as
that looks like you actually need a little bit more water there.
Oh, interesting. Would you look at that? We went through all of our water. Good thing I have this nice BWT aqualizer here, ready to go.
I'm getting ready for some coffee too, so I don't know if we have any other questions, but otherwise we'll keep going. So we'll let that keep going, and then Zach, do you want to begin our taste test, or do we want to wait just a little bit?
We're going to go ahead and beginning our taste test. I feel like this will be ready just in time for us. I found that the insulated carafe on this fellow, there's a lot of metal to it. I did not pre-warm this. I did do one batch before this, but it did not stay warm. So there is a little bit of initial cold shock to this if you don't heat it under some water. So we'll actually find this quite sippable and enjoyable by the time we get to our fellow. Sippable.
Exactly. And so this is the Ethiopia. It's a natural process.
It looks hot.
It is hot.
Okay.
We are getting the signal from Andrew that he also would like some coffee. Shout out to Andrew and Mike today behind the camera who are producing this segment for us. There we are.
All right, so I'm getting some very pleasant acidity to this. I can definitely tell it was brewed kind of hot, and I'm gonna assume that this will be kind of the hottest side of our actual brew methods today. So we'll see if we like these kinds of acids that are brewed at this temperature in comparison to dropping temperatures throughout our process over here with 202, and this was probably a little bit lower as well.
I am getting some of that pleasant acidity. Some florality is coming through. A little muted,
Slightly muted, for sure.
But not bad. I think I might even change the ratio. So
I would change the ratio on this. I would actually increase my initial dose as well.
Yeah.
So I would probably bump this up into like that 52 gram range.
Yeah, and so I kind of went right in the middle. So obviously Bonavita has some suggestions just based on the cup size. So at 6 cups, they said 42 to 54. We went in the middle with 48. So great question from Amanda down there in the comments as well. How beginner safe is the Aiden? And so the Aiden actually can be very beginner friendly, but it does come down to your willingness to commit to specialty coffee. So there are guided brew modes, like Zach was saying, where the coffee maker can actually give you recommendations for ratios. It can give you recommendations for how much water or how many grams or things like that. That can basically teach you how to use it. But when it does come to some of the more sophisticated functionality, you are going to need to understand sort of what you're doing. So when you're talking about things like bloom, or you're talking about things like pouring schedules, or how many pours you want, is it going to be a 3-pour or a 4-pour brew? That does require some familiarity with pour over brewing and having familiarity with how those sorts of things can affect your extraction. So to me, I think that on the one hand, the Aiden is very beginner friendly in the sense that it can guide you through things, and you can just download brew profiles and follow those instead. But at the same time, it's a little more challenging if you're trying to create some of those profiles yourself.
Correct. And from a roaster's profile, I really like the fact that I could just create those profiles and then send them off to people. There's no messing up.
Yeah.
It is exactly how the roaster intends that to taste.
Exactly. And so obviously people can brew it exactly the way that you want. So let's try now from our Breville Lux that we have here. I do feel like this is holding the temperature a little hotter, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I feel like that was pretty hot. But this one is actually a little bit more muted.
It's more muted, and I think it is due to that hotter temperature. So in this particular case, I would probably go with a custom brew and bring that down to maybe a 198, because I'm not getting the same florality or acidity as I was getting from the Bonavita.
Well, and this could actually change as we see this cup cool. Our brains can just sense that florality a little bit more, and they can be more pronounced as it cools, which is what's kind of cool about the cold brew functions as well. There's a lot more of those acids that are then exchanged into the water that you can taste.
But I would say right now too, I mean, obviously we brewed first with the Bonavita, but it is being heated just like the Breville is, so both are being held at temperatures. Now let's go on to our last one, and I am going to give this cup a little rinse because it was on display. So
all right, so I'm going to get the fellow here.
It's our stunt cup.
Which I don't know if anyone heard, but it does make a nice little ring as soon as it's done. And that nice color display does show that it's ready. I love the
colors. The rainbow is really, really fun. Yeah, go ahead and give us a little bit of the Aiden coffee now, Zach. I just love this view that we're on here, just seeing all our beautiful cups. The other Pico colors are a little more neutral. There's one called Natural. There's a white one as well. And I believe a black one. I can't quite remember, but
there is. Yep.
Yeah. So earth tones mostly, but.
So one thing that we did not do as well, which is an important factor, especially with these kinds of brew methods, is actually stir your cup.
Well, I did swirl. I don't know if you saw.
Oh, you did swirl. Okay, gotcha.
Swirl, yeah, I did a swirl.
And if not, we also have our spoons as well. But basically, when you brew these, they do stack in layers of extraction. So you do need a little bit of a stir or a swirl within your actual dispenser beforehand.
Yeah. And so that is one thing just to keep in mind too, is if you do interrupt your brew and you take your carafe out. I remember John kind of gave me a raised eyebrow the other day when I was like, oh yeah, it's got a little valve. And he's like, do you really want to stop your brew in the middle? Because his point is, to what Zach is saying, you are going to experience some layering. It is a little bit like the salami shot, right? With espresso, where at different parts of the extraction, different things are coming out of the coffee. So you do want to make sure that you can get everything reincorporated so you have a more even and balanced cup.
Now I'm going to head back to this first cup really fast because I feel like this fellow is actually tasting pretty similar to the Bonavita.
I think on the nose, too, from the fellow, I am getting more of the florality. I do get more of the acidity. I'm curious to go back to the Lux now that it's probably cooled a little bit. But the Bonavita...
The Bonavita, honestly, out the box, is performing amazing.
Yeah, I would say
I really like the flavor profile of that, just like not even having to mess with it like we did with all the rest of just like a stock sort of recipe.
Yeah, I mean, we used a basic grind for drip coffee, and we just followed, you know, we split the difference on their own recommendation. So kind of going back to, you know, the question about how beginner safe is the Aiden, and, you know, posing that to the Bonavita, I would say very beginner safe.
Yeah.
Because if you just have a basic scale, you're pretty good to go just following their recommendations.
Correct.
So
Yep.
going back to the Lux, though, I want to try it now that it's cooled a little bit. I am getting more acidity. It's definitely pleasant. It's just I'm not getting the florality that I know that I can get from the Ethiopia.
Yep.
And that's, again, where I think I might lower the brew temperature. And see, and that is one of the things that's nice, at least about the Breville Lux, is that unlike the Bonavita, you can go in and make some changes, not just to your dose, but also obviously to your brew conditions as well. And then the Aiden takes that obviously to the nth degree.
Yeah, and this is going to be one of the main experiments that you'll really find, and what roasters also experiment too, is like what flavor profiles do you want at what temperature?
Yeah.
They're all volatile at different temperatures, and they're all going to extract at different temperatures. So you might have something at 202 that you really don't want in your cup, and maybe it's adding too much like chocolate, or there's too much body to it in a way. Whereas a lower temperature, there might be the really nice florals that are very delicate and very volatile at the same time, and you don't want to go past that, and you just want to attach yourself to those florals right there. So.
I am getting a little bit more pleasant acidity from this, more of kind of a jammy body, which is good. You know, we wanted to show off, obviously, one of our single origins today. So a lot of times, if you watch our videos, you're going to see our Crema Wave, but these are all specialty grade single origin coffees that we have here as well. The Ethiopia is a crowd pleaser, you know, around the office. The Colombia Tolima, I think, is quite popular. The Guatemala as well. You know, these are, like I said in our previous stream, going to be some of the freshest coffees that you can get from us. And, you know, if you're looking to try something different, maybe something a little more challenging, that's where getting an SCA Certified Coffee Maker is really going to help you out. So to kind of come back full circle to what is an SCA Certified Coffee Maker, it's going to be something that out of the box, as Zach was saying, is going to be able to handle brewing a higher grade coffee like this. So, you know, let's say you're not getting an espresso machine, but you still want to drink good coffee. Maybe you don't have time to do pour over, for example. This is going to be a great way to cash in on the investment in higher quality coffees, even if you don't necessarily have the time or the inclination to become a full-on barista.
Yeah, it's the batch brew super auto, basically. So that is a way to really look at it. And, you know, still to this day, when I go to a lot of coffee shops, I'm usually ordering an espresso and then a batch brew. I think it's just a different method and a different way to taste coffee, that even tasting the same coffee is so different in comparison to other brew methods. I think drip is very specific on its overall flavor profile and very close to how we taste it on maybe like a cupping table, which we'll actually see on Monday as well, where we're actually going to look at all of these different kinds of coffees, how we go through and cup those coffees. And if you're a little confused on any of the flavor profiles that we kind of like pick between all of these different cups, we're going to be going over more of that and what kind of flavor profiles you can find on these different coffees, and you can find them at different temperatures.
So the most loaded question, of course, do you have a favorite of the three?
You know, oddly enough, it's between the Bonavita, just stock. I feel like it just has a really pleasant body. And when I say body, it has a really pleasant, like, silky texture to it. And then the florality that I get off of the Fellow on that kind of stock, I really like that aspect of it. So there's something between maybe the temperature on the Bonavita, and then maybe like the bloom and variations of what it was doing on the Fellow that I like. But the cool thing about the Fellow is that I can figure out what was happening on the Bonavita. I'll program that in. So.
Yeah, well, and again, 120 gram bloom, and then how long you let that bloom last is really going to be up to you. I mean, for me, I definitely think the Bonavita is going to be my pick for today. If I had to describe it, this is going to be very specific, but I feel like a cherry Tootsie Pop. Is kind of where I'm going.
Definitely,
with this,
it definitely has that kind of cherry. It's almost Rainier cherry as well.
Yeah, you lived in Seattle for a while, so you probably are more familiar with those Rainier cherries. Than me.
Yeah.
I just get regular New York cherries.
See, it also depends on where you're kind of from, of what kind of flavor profiles you're
What
gonna
references
say.
you have, yeah, exactly,
Eat
flavor-wise.
more fruit, and then you'll figure out more flavor profiles.
And I will say, though, the Breville has definitely opened up as it's cooled down, for sure. I think the initial higher temperature was kind of interfering with some of my perceptions there.
But it almost goes into maybe a chocolatey nougat sort of flavor profile in comparison to the Bonavita, which is
I could definitely see
staying
that.
in that floral range.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think there is just a little bit more of kind of that nougaty kind of body from that, whereas you do get more of kind of the fruit florality from the other two.
Yep.
So anyway, unless there's any other questions, Zach, what do we have coming up next? You're in our next stream, aren't you?
I am not in our next stream. In fact, you're actually going to get John and Mark. They're going to be going over different kinds of grinders as well. So that's going to be largely important. There's a reason why we only used one grinder throughout all of our brew methods today, is because it matters. If we changed the ode and that tasted better, it might have been due to the grinder.
Exactly.
You never know. Or maybe the grind size, and there's a bunch of other factors that they're going to look into.
But anyway, if you're tuning in live, thank you so much for joining us and for all of your questions and comments. We will be back again at 2 o'clock for you with our Grinders live stream. And like I said in my previous stream as well, if you're watching during our Black Friday event, so this is Wednesday, going on until Monday is when we're going to be streaming as well. We've got some really great deals, so make sure you check those out. If you've got questions about any of our espresso machines or grinders, you can book a coffee cast with a member of our sales team. Unfortunately, our coffee makers are not part of the coffee cast, but you can always watch the stream again. And you and I did a nice little stream on things like the X Bloom before, so definitely got that covered for you. And that barista assist, where if you're really looking to get dialed in for the holidays and you're stressing, let us help you out. We can certainly get you dialed in for that. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I will be out for now, but you'll be joined again by John and Mark coming up at 2. So thank you all for watching. Zach, pleasure as always.
Pleasure. See you next time.
All right, take care, everyone.